Hello and welcome to this press conference. Bonjour et bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. I'm Elizabeth Thompson with CBC News. With us today, we have three gentlemen from Statistics Canada that will talk to us about the newest results from the census. Jeff Bobley, Director General, Laurent Martel, and Patrick Charbonneau. Gentlemen.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm grateful to be joining you from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin-Anishinaabe First Nation. We're the first people to walk the lands on which the nation's capital is located today. Que ce soit en période de prospérité ou dans des moments difficiles, le recensement brasse un portrait détaillé de la mosaïque changeante du Canada. This morning, Statistics Canada released the first results of the 2021 census through its official release bulletin, The Daily. Today's release on population and dwelling counts is the first of 7 census releases this year. It explores how population growth as well as international and internal migration patterns have changed the fabric of Canadian society. The role of data has never been more significant. Through stories, tables, and figures, the 2021 census shows us where we were, where we are, and where we are going. With new modernized tools and platforms, we are showcasing our data in more innovative ways, including our new StatScan app. En tant que concitoyen, je suis incroyablement fier du fait que nous avons atteint un taux de réponse de 98% malgré les difficultés que nous avons connues en 2021, vagues de chaleur, incendies, tragédie nationale et pandémie. I profoundly thank all Canadians for their participation in the census and making it such a high priority and for giving us such a high response rate. We know that the information presented here today will help inform the development of sound public policy across the country and in all communities. This includes everything from locations of schools and daycares to hospitals, vaccine allocations, and emergency response programs that impact all Canadians. Statistics Canada adapted the census to the new realities of COVID-19. Everything from recruitment to data collection was done through the lens of safety, ensuring the health of Canadians, respondents, and staff alike was a top priority. The 2021 census was conducted safely and securely, allowing Canadians to tell their stories that are reflected in the updated portrait of the country. To all organizations who encourage completion of the census, I'm pleased to say the payoff is now here in the form of high-quality census data that decision makers and policymakers can rely on to shape the country's future. Nous sommes fiers de vous présenter les principaux résultats aux échelons national, provincial et territorial. Cette première diffusion de recensement de 2021. Après notre présentation, nous serons disponibles pour répondre à vos questions. Over to you, Laurent.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you're hearing me well. Bonjour tout le monde. J'espère que vous m'entendez bien. My name is Laurent Martel. I am the director of the Center for Demography at Statistics Canada. There's a PowerPoint presentation that's available. Hopefully you had the chance to get a copy. The PowerPoint presentation is available both in French and in English. So it is my pleasure this morning to show you the key findings from this first release of the 2021 census, which focuses on population and dwelling counts. Other releases are planned in the coming months of 2022, and these upcoming releases will focus on other key characteristics of the Canadian population, such as, for example, age and sex, gender as well, families, language, Indigenous and immigrant populations, education, work, and so much more. The census has been a part of the lives of Canadians since Confederation and even before, and has been a very valuable tool to make informed decisions to ensure the well-being of all Canadians for so many years. I don't know if, I'm just wondering if journalists can see the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation. I assume people are seeing the presentation, so I'll just mention that I'm switching slides and I'm now on slide number 2 of the deck that's available today. A number of census products are released today by Statistics Canada, and they are all available free on our website. Key findings and stories can be found in 4 analytical documents. We have released 2 dailies which are available on the landing page of our website as we speak. The first daily talks about the key findings at the national level, provinces and territories, large urban centers, and there's a part as well on the rural population of Canada. The other daily that we released today focuses on population growth in Canada's large urban centers. In there, you will find pieces about how our downtowns of the major urban centers of the country have been growing since 2016, which is the previous census, and how they were affected by the recent pandemic. We also discussed in there about population growth in other zones within those large urban centers, such as, for example, the urban fringe and more distant suburbs. Today, we also released two Census in Brief, it's other analytical papers, which have very interesting stories on Canada's fastest growing and decreasing municipalities, and on recent trends for rural regions. The specific paper on rural regions goes a little bit more into details, which are the rural regions of the country which are growing fast, and which one may actually show population declines. Included in those four analytical documents are interesting charts and maps. On Statistics Canada website, you will also find many data products, including census data tables and several visualization tools, allowing you to easily and quickly get the census counts for any community in this country. Also available are a number of reference projects, such as the Census Dictionary, if you need information on definitions and concept use in the documents and the tables that we see on the StatCan website. So I'm now switching to slide number 3. Let's move now to the key findings of this first release of the census. So between censuses 2016 and 2021, population growth in Canada during this 5-year period was the fastest among G7 countries, despite the recent pandemic. This strong population growth shown by our country was fueled by immigration, both permanent and temporary immigrants. The natural increase, which is basically the difference between births and deaths, only played a minor role in this 5-year period, explaining about 15% only of the population increase. Canada has been actually leading the G7 countries for population growth for at least 20 years now. The 2021 census counted close to 37 million Canadians, and that's 1.8 million more than what was observed in 2016. I will now switch to the slide number 4 on the PowerPoint presentation. So this is a very interesting chart. You see there Canada's population growth for the last 4 intercensal periods, all the way back to the period 2001 to 2006. These 5 years growth are represented on the chart by the green bars and the yellow circles. Now the red line on top is showing actually the annual population growth, not the 5-year average growth. And as you can see, there's been some important annual variations during the period 2016 to 2021, so the last 5 years. And these annual variations are hidden if you just consider the full 5-year period where we observed a growth of 5.2%. The country went actually from a record high population growth in the first 4 years of the 5-year period, so that's 2016 to 2019. And then we had record low population growth in 2020, due of course to the pandemic, during which border restrictions were in effect and traveling was made more difficult. In fact, we have to go back to First World War, that's about 100 years back in time, to find a population growth rate that was as low as the one we registered for 2020. As you can also see on the chart, the annual variations were much smaller during the 3 previous intercensal periods That's from 2001 to 2016. I'll switch now to the next slides, which show a map including the population growth for the different provinces and territories. So the strength of the census of population is that it can provide very robust data at the local area level. And in a vast country like Canada, this is an important asset, since the national average often hides some major regional differences. For example, Yukon and Prince Edward Island were the fastest growing territory or province over the last 5 years. At the opposite, Newfoundland and Labrador was the only province to show a population decrease of minus 1.8%. One key finding of the 2021 census is that the population of the Maritimes grew actually slightly faster than the population of the prairies. And that's a first in census since the 1940s. More international immigrants and more Canadians moving or returning to the Maritimes are the key factors that help the Maritimes to show a higher population growth than during the previous intercensal periods. And finally, the impact of the pandemic was felt from coast to coast, but growth remained positive in 8 provinces and all 3 territories in 2020. I'm switching now to the next slide about Canada's large urban centers. These large urban centers are actually home of nearly 3 Canadians out of 4. In the last 5 years, the country has continued to urbanize, and we have now 41 large urban centers of 100,000 inhabitants or more, compared to 35 back in 2016. The new large urban centers are Fredericton, Drummondville, Red Deer, Kamloops, Chilliwack, and Nanaimo. In most of these urban areas, population growth actually accelerated in the last 5 years, with 4 of the fastest growing large urban centers being located in British Columbia, and these are Kelowna, Chilliwack, Nanaimo, and Kamloops. They appear in red actually on the map displayed on the slide you actually see. Hopefully you see. For the first time in more than 25 years, Calgary is no longer in the top 5 fastest growing urban centers of the country. Another sign of the acceleration of population growth among large urban centers, actually none showed a population decrease in the last 5 years, and this is a first in 6 censuses. And finally, the COVID-19 pandemic had a negative impact on population growth of most of these large urban centers in 2020. And in some cases, like Montreal, the population even decreased slightly in 2020 for that particular large urban center. I'm switching now to the next slide, which talks about the smaller urban centers. So besides the large urban centers of the country, Canada is also home to 111 small urban centers. About 1 in 10 Canadians, or 3.8 million, are living in these small urban areas with a population size that's comprised between 10 and 100,000 inhabitants. 4 of the 5 fastest growing small urban centers are actually resort places, such as Squamish, Zaga Beach, Canmore, or Collingwood. They appear in red on the map displayed on the slide. In some small urban centers, the population decreased over the last 5 years, such as in Campbellton, Estevan, or Dawson Creek. They are also shown in blue on the map shown on the slide. I'm switching now to slide number 8, which talks about the rural population of the country. The 2021 census enumerated 6.6 million Canadians living in the rural areas, representing 17.8% of the total population. This proportion has been steadily decreasing for decades now, another proof that Canada is getting more urban. On the chart, a rural population is represented since 1851 in blue and the urban population in orange. Among the key reasons behind lower growth in rural areas, fewer immigrants establishing themselves in rural areas compared to urban parts of the country, and people also moving out of these rural areas to live in urban zone, in particular, young adults. The population of some rural area, though, is increasing. Find more in the daily release today about which are those rural areas where we see strong population growth. And I invite you as well to consult the Census in Brief that's dedicated specifically on rural areas of the country. Now, the next slide, actually slide number 9, something new in the 2021 census release. We are looking closer to population trends associated with the downtowns of Canada's largest urban centers. So you can see on the map shown on the slide here, the downtown of Toronto in dark gray, and 4 different zones according to their proximity to this downtown. Also shown on the map, the population growth of these different areas between 2016 and 2021, the last 2 censuses. Now, for most of the downtowns of the 41 large urban centers of the country, population growth actually accelerated in the last 5 years compared to the previous 5-year period, that's between 2011 and 2016. Also, for some of them, like Toronto, downtowns were actually the fastest increasing area of the whole urban zone, increasing even faster than the distant suburbs, which are often associated with the urban spread. Similar maps for other urban centers, such as Montreal and Vancouver, are available in the second daily release today. I'm switching to the next slide still about downtowns of the large urban centers. So among the fastest growing downtowns in the last 5 years, the ones located in Halifax, in Montreal, and in Kelowna. All these downtown outpaced the growth observed for the whole urban center. On the chart seen on the slide, the bar in light blue shows population growth for downtowns, and the bar in dark blue, the growth for large urban centers as a whole. A few downtowns showed a population decline, such as in Quebec, Edmonton, Saguenay, Regina, and Red Deer. Also in the paper released today, how the pandemic affected these downtowns and other areas located within these large urban centers. In many cases, the pandemic slowed population growth of the downtowns. And for downtowns of Montreal and Vancouver, for example, the population even decreased in 2020. Switching to the slide number 11, and I will be using French for the rest of the presentation, which is about to end. Alors, l'article diffusé aujourd'hui détaille également la croissance au sein des diverses banlieues retrouvées au sein des grands centres urbains du Canada. Et ces banlieues sont classées en fonction de leur éloignement en voiture du centre-ville. Alors, parmi les résultats les plus intéressants, la croissance très forte des centres-villes de Toronto et Montréal, par exemple, et au même moment, l'étalement urbain qui se poursuit, comme en témoignent les fortes croissances observées dans certaines banlieues éloignées qui sont situées à 30 minutes ou plus des centres-villes. À Calgary, Edmonton et Ottawa-Gatineau, par exemple, les plus fortes augmentations de population ont été observées dans les banlieues situées entre 20 et 30 minutes de voiture du centre-ville. Je passe maintenant à la diapositive numéro 12. Le premier recensement en bref qu'on diffuse aujourd'hui à Statistique Canada présente les municipalités canadiennes avec les plus fortes et les plus faibles croissances de population au cours des 5 dernières années. On y retrouve des palmarès, comme celui que vous voyez sur la diapositive, qui montre par exemple que East Gwillimbury, en Ontario, est la municipalité canadienne ayant vu sa population augmenter le plus rapidement entre 2016 et 2021, soit de 44,4 %. Cette municipalité est située au nord de Toronto, tout près du lac Simcoe. Les palmarès des municipalités qui croissent et qui décroissent le plus rapidement pour chacune des provinces et territoires sont également disponibles dans le premier recensement en bref diffusé aujourd'hui par Statistique Canada. Je passe maintenant à la diapositive numéro 13. Le deuxième recensement en bref se concentre sur les populations rurales du Canada. Alors, à l'échelle nationale, les régions rurales ont connu une hausse de population relativement faible. Dans le papier, dans le recensement en bref diffusé aujourd'hui, on peut retrouver des résultats sur la croissance des régions rurales dans chacune des provinces et des territoires. Dans 5 d'entre elles, soit à l'île du Prince-Édouard, en Nouvelle-Écosse, au Québec, en Ontario et en Colombie-Britannique, ainsi qu'au Yukon et au Nunavut, les populations rurales ont augmenté entre 2016 et 2021. D'autres détails sur les différentes régions rurales qui composent le Canada, ainsi que sur leur croissance démographique, parfois positive, parfois négative, sont disponibles dans ce deuxième recensement en bref diffusé aujourd'hui. Alors, je termine cette présentation générale des grands résultats, des premiers grands résultats du recensement de la population de 2021, en vous rappelant qu'il s'agit en fait d'une première diffusion et que 7 autres diffusions seront réalisées au cours de l'année 2022. La prochaine aura lieu en avril prochain et nous discuterons à ce moment-là des caractéristiques de la population selon l'âge, selon le sexe à la naissance, selon le genre. C'est alors la première fois que Statistique Canada diffusera des données détaillées sur les populations transgenres et non-binaires vivant au Canada, entre autres choses. Nous ferons également le point sur le vieillissement de la population canadienne, ainsi que sur les populations très jeunes et très âgées qui vivent au Canada. Alors, je vous invite tous à revenir avec nous à cette occasion pour compléter ces nouveaux niveaux en 2020. Alors, voilà, je vous remercie de répondre à vos questions dans la salle officielle de conférence. Welcome any of your questions in both official languages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Martel, I think you have to work on your microphone a little bit. We were having problems towards the last couple of minutes on it.
Okay.
It's now time for questions. Those who would like to, on the Zoom call, who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. There'll be one question, one follow-up, and there's one person on my list who is listed only by their first name. So Andy, if you do want a question, please register with your full name, because I won't call on someone I don't know. First question goes to Pascal Vachon from TFO. Sorry, it helps if I allow someone to talk.
Oui, bonjour, vous m'entendez bien?
Oui.
Oui.
Je voulais savoir exactement, là, vous parlez de l'étalement urbain, puis on a l'impression que les gens se sont alentours des grands centres, comme Vancouver, Toronto, Ottawa, Montréal, les gens se sont déplacés un peu à l'extérieur. Jusqu'à quel point les gens se sont déplacés? On parlait de 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. C'est à partir de quand que les gens, jusqu'à combien de temps, je pourrais dire, ou jusqu'à combien alentours que les gens se sont déplacés? Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire là-dessus?
Alors, je vous invite à consulter, en fait, ce qu'on appelle le quotidien numéro 2 qui porte sur les grands centres urbains du Canada. Là-dedans, on détaille les croissances dans différentes zones des grands centres urbains, détaillant le centre-ville. Et puis, on a établi là, des zones en fonction du temps de voiture pour rejoindre le centre-ville. Donc, par exemple, lorsque la banlieue est située entre 10 et 20 minutes de voiture, de 20 à 30 minutes de voiture du centre-ville. Ce qu'on constate, c'est qu'il y a 2 phénomènes, en fait. Au cours des 5 dernières années, dans certaines grandes villes comme Montréal, Toronto, Vancouver, il y a eu actuellement une densification des centres-villes, puisque la croissance démographique des centres-villes de ces grandes régions urbaines s'est accélérée. Alors, une plus forte densité démographique se concentre maintenant au centre-ville. Au même moment, il y a un phénomène d'étalement urbain qui n'est pas nouveau au Canada, mais qui se poursuit de façon très claire, puisque, par exemple, les régions, les banlieues éloignées, les plus éloignées des centres-villes, par exemple celles situées à 30 minutes de voiture du centre-ville, ont connu également des fortes croissances démographiques. On peut même ajouter à ça que bien souvent, on constate que les municipalités qui sont situées juste à l'extérieur des frontières des grands centres urbains du Canada sont aussi des municipalités qui croissent très rapidement. Donc, il y a vraiment un phénomène d'étalement urbain. Les banlieues les plus éloignées croissent rapidement dans bien des cas. Également, les villes qui sont situées juste à l'extérieur de ces grands centres urbains-là et qui, éventuellement, dans quelques années, feront partie de ces grands centres urbains. Bon exemple, dans la région de Montréal, c'est Saint-Jean-sur-le-Richelieu, qui a connu des croissances démographiques assez élevées au cours des dernières années et qui maintenant fait partie, si je me rappelle bien, de l'agglomération de la grande région métropolitaine de Montréal. Ça fait partie de la géographie là, de ce qu'on appelle la région métropolitaine de recensement de Montréal. Donc, ce sont deux tendances qu'il faut bien distinguer, une densification des centres-villes et au même moment, la poursuite de urbain au Canada.
OK. En follow-up, quand on parle des logements, est-ce que ces grands centres, là, vous parlez de 30 minutes à l'extérieur, au niveau de l'offre de logement, est-ce qu'on s'en va vers une pénurie de logements dans ces régions de plus en plus peuplées, dans les 30, 40 minutes? Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire de ce côté-là?
Il y a plusieurs choses à dire. En fait, une chose intéressante, c'est que lors de la prochaine diffusion des données du recensement en avril, nous diffuserons donc les différents types de logements. Par exemple, distinguant les condominiums, des maisons détachées, etc. Donc, ça sera l'occasion de revenir sur ces questions-là. Ce que je peux vous dire également de cette première diffusion, c'est qu'il y a certainement des croissances démographiques élevées dans certaines banlieues éloignées des centres-villes à l'intérieur des RMR. Et également pour les municipalités dont je parlais, là, qui sont situées juste à la frontière de ces grandes régions métropolitaines. Alors, certainement que dans ces régions-là, la demande de logement est actuellement très forte, étant donné là, la croissance démographique. Il y a vraiment une propension aux gens, à certaines personnes, de quitter actuellement les grands centres urbains du Canada et se diriger vers des zones plus périphériques. Ça s'est accéléré. Et ça, on le voit avec d'autres programmes comme celui des estimations démographiques. Ça s'est accéléré au cours de la dernière année, notamment en raison de la pandémie de COVID-19.
Prochaine question, c'est Mylène Deschamps de Cogeco. Vous devriez enlever votre sourdine. Mylène?
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Ah oui, merci.
Oui.
Maintenant,
OK.
oui.
Bon, M. Martel, par rapport à la fin de votre présentation tout à l'heure, vous avez dit qu'il y aurait 7 autres diffusions de ce recensement-là. Et là, on a parlé de données là, qui seront présentées pour une toute première fois dans les recensements canadiens, c'est-à-dire on a parlé des personnes transgenres, transsexuelles. C'est bien ça?
Il s'agit en fait des personnes transgenres et non-binaires qui vivent au Canada. Le recensement de la population, cette fois-ci, pour la première fois, incluait une question sur le genre, en plus de la question sur le sexe, qui a été précisée pour devenir une question sur le sexe à la naissance. Donc, évidemment, ce n'est pas les données qu'on diffuse aujourd'hui. Ces données-là seront diffusées la prochaine fois, en fait, au mois d'avril prochain.
Merci. Je n'ai pas de sous-questions.
D'accord. Okay, next question goes to Jordan Press from Canadian Press.
Oh, hi, good morning, everyone. Mr. Matza, can you just tell us, I mean, you talked about the growth rate in the population and how it's slowed from a high down to an all-time low. I'm wondering, what would have happened to the growth rate if we hadn't had COVID-19? Is that something that you're able to comment on, or is there a modeling that Statistics Canada has done to say where our population would have been absent COVID-19?
Well, I think you're right. Actually, we went in 2019 from a record high population growth. It was about 1.6% on an annual basis, which is a fairly significant population growth, the highest of the G7 countries. You have to think that at 2%, the population 2% growth rate, a population doubles in about 35 years. So 1.6% is pretty significant. It was a record high in many, many years and even decades. And because of the pandemic and border restrictions, immigration fell in Canada. And so our growth went from 1.6 to about 0.4% in 2020, which is a significant drop. And the growth rate observed in 2020 with the pandemic of 0.4% was the lowest actually in about a century. We have to go back to the First World War to see such a low population growth in this country. What would have happened without the pandemic? I mean, who knows? But certainly we can say that the trend in the years just prior to the pandemic, so period 2016 to 2019, population growth in this country was increasing. And there's an interesting chart in the first daily showing that. I've talked about it. I mean, we've mapped the 5-year average growth. And then on top of that, you have the annual growth represented by the red line. You can definitely see that from 2016 to 2019, the population growth rate of this country was on the rise. And that was related to immigration. I mean, the immigration plan provided by Parliament was for higher immigration levels, and it shows it had an impact on our population growth rate over these 4 years. So, I mean, we were definitely seeing a strong and increasing population growth rate just prior to the pandemic.
And maybe as my follow-up, can you just comment maybe generally about how much of an impact COVID-19 had? I mean, in the sense of how much did you expect it to have an impact on the numbers versus how much it actually did have an impact on the census results?
Well, at Statistics Canada, we're tracking population trends really precisely using the census, using other programs such as the Demographic Estimates program, which produces data on a quarterly and annual basis. So we have data quarterly. We were tracking down very closely population trends, and we knew, and this is not actually something we knew, and it's not new, that the growth in this country is related to a large extent to immigration. 85% of Canada's population growth rate for the last few years has been related to immigration levels. So it's pretty significant. It's not the case in all countries. If you take, for example, Japan, they don't have immigration or barely immigrate. They barely receive immigrants every year. So their growth in Japan is based on the natural increase. That's birth and deaths. And since it's negative, they have more deaths than birth. The population in Japan is declining. In Canada, it's a very different situation. Immigration plays a significant role, 85% of our growth. So we knew that with border restrictions, if incoming immigrants had a harder time migrating to Canada, it would have an impact on our population growth because it's so much related to immigration at this stage.
Y a-t-il d'autres questions? Or does anyone else want to ask a question? Please raise your hand. Je ne vois pas des mains levées. So thank you very much. This ends this press conference.
Thank you very much.